Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to set up an online poker game using Roll20.net so you can play poker and other card games with your friends. It's very simple to use once you've got it all set up. We've ironed out the kinks so I can show you how to do it easily. It's drag and drop. You can see I've dealt out a hand of Texas Hold'em. We have cards over here and chips over here. We have a table, and I actually created seats for each of the players, which I'll show you how to do. And then each player has a stack of chips and then a hand of cards. And I swear I did not cheat. This is a legitimate full house, and I wish that I could get this hand in real poker. Let me show you an image real quick of what this would look like in a full table. You can see us all cheersing and smiling and having fun together. It's a lot more fun when there's more than just one person logged in. So let me show you how to set this up through Roll20. You need to go to Roll20.net. and you need to log in and make a free account. And then there's a tab up at the top for games, and this will show you any existing games you already have, as well as tutorials. There's lots of tutorials, and in the community there's some too. We're going to use it to create a card table. So we're going to go up to Games, Create New Game. We're going to make our own. We're going to call this Poker Practice. We're not going to create a character sheet because it's not that kind of game. There is sort of a backdrop image that we can fill in up here if we want. I have already saved some pictures that we're going to use for this tutorial. And you can invite players. You can invite players by typing their email addresses into this line or by copying this link and sharing it with players. We're going to launch the game. And when you start a new game in Roll20, this is all you get. You get a blank canvas. It has a grid on it that can be used to space out tokens and maps and stuff. I'm going to go up to the top where I can adjust my pages. I'm going to turn the grid off because I don't need a graph on my poker table. And I'm going to leave the rest of the options as they are. So I'm going to turn the grid off and say, okay. Now I have a completely blank white page that I can zoom in and out and scroll up and down. It helps to put an actual picture of a poker table here. So it's very simple to upload pictures. Upload from the library tab over here. As you can see, I've got some pictures I've already uploaded. You can click the upload button or you can just drag it right onto the screen. I'm going to use this guy. You should see it shows up tiny so you can resize it. When you're building the game, you are the quote-unquote game master, and you have more options than the players who join your game. You have access to 3 layers of the board, and your players only have access to 1. What I would recommend highly is anything that you want to be a background to your game, a fixed object that you and your players cannot accidentally move or delete. What you should do is put it on the map and background layer. So this has already been dropped on the objects and tokens layer. I'm going to right click it and move it to the map layer. And now you can see I can't select it anymore because I'm editing the token layer. I'm going to switch to the map and background layer. And I'm also going to add boxes for each of my players around the table. When you log in, each player will be given a randomly assigned color. So I like to make the box, or one of my players had the idea actually to make the box associate with that. You can resize and move and edit these boxes however you need, but it helps to actually put just sort of a visual reference for your players on the board so that they know where they can put their chips and where they should put their cards. And then you can also, from this option, you can put text. You don't have to create player seats or player boxes, but it really does help when they drag things onto the board. They're not going to show up in the same place. So putting a player square on the board helps a lot. So this it was all done in the map and background layer so that when I go back to my objects and tokens, none of these things are selectable or editable. They're locked in place and my players can't mess with them. So we've got a table, we've got players. What do we need next? We need some cards. The nice thing is, a deck of cards is already included with the Roll20 system. Now it is 54 cards because it is 52 cards and 2 jokers. Now, we don't play any games that require jokers, so I'm going to go in here and I'm actually going to scroll down and I can see the list of all the cards in this deck. I'm going to find the jokers and delete them. One tip, when you edit and delete cards from this deck, it's permanent. You have to make a whole new game if you mess up this deck. So be very careful when you're in here editing the deck. Changes that you make cannot be reversed. My red joker. Okay, so now I have a deck of 52 playing cards. It's the normal deck. And we have some extra options for our cards up here at the top. Show deck to players, we're going to leave that on because that means that players can see the deck on the screen. Players can draw cards. This means that any player who's at your table can grab a card from the deck and draw it onto the table or into their hand. And so just to prevent people from accidentally clicking the wrong thing, I'm going to uncheck that. Cards in the deck are infinite. Now we keep the standard 52 card deck. If we were really sitting around a table playing with one deck of cards, that's what this means. If you were playing sort of Vegas style where the cards are constantly going into a machine that shuffles them and spits them back out automatically, you might want to select this for cards are infinite, but we're going to say cards are not infinite. We do not want to allow choosing specific cards from the deck because we want the cards to be random. Discard pile. I actually found that it was pretty helpful for the types of games that we play to allow a discard pile. It means that if you delete cards off the table, they don't automatically go back into the deck. This is also a helpful option. When you play a card to the table, does it show up face up or face down? That means that if I drag a card from the deck onto the table, or if I had a card in my hand and I dragged it from my hand onto the table, notice that they're showing up face up. This is kind of helpful, but it also leads to accidentally showing cards when you don't mean to. So I think the default should be that they should be played face down. You can leave the rest of the settings in place. Card size is fine. I'm gonna save changes. So now, when I draw cards from the deck, notice they come out face down. So now I have a deck of cards. The other thing we're gonna need is chips. You can't play poker without chips. The easiest way to make a stack of chips to act as the banker is to actually create another deck as though you were making a deck of playing cards. So we're going to click the add button over here. And on my new deck, I'm going to call this 25s, like 25-cent chips. We want to show these chips to the players. We do not want to let them draw chips from the stack themselves. That would be chaos. This time we do want them to be infinite because we want this to be the bank, and the bank is going to have an infinite supply of chips. Doesn't matter if they're random because we're only going to put one chip in this deck. No discard pile for chips, in my opinion. Card size we actually will tweak in a minute. This is up to you if you want players to be able to see how many chips are in each other's hands, and if you want to be able to see how many chips are in everyone's hands. So now we have an empty quote-unquote card deck, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a picture and upload the back of the chip, quote unquote. There it is. So this is the card back, just like the back of the cards here is all the same. We only have to put one image here for the card backing. And then we're going to add one card to this deck. We're going to call this one card 25 cents. Same thing, we're going to take that same image because our chips are the same on the front and the back. We're going to drop that image here. And we're going to save this card. So essentially what we've created is we've created a quote-unquote deck of cards called 25s that is infinite and only has one card in it, and that one card is a 25-cent chip. We're going to save it. We're going to go back to our decks over here and hit show, and now we have a deck of cards that everyone can see and a stack of chips that everyone can see. We can do this again with our other chips. This one's going to be called 50s. We want players to be able to see it. We don't want them to draw. We want them to be infinite. Choose a file. make one card in this deck, call it 50 cent, drop our image of a chip on it, let it upload, save it. We have now set up a table. We have customized our deck of cards for our needs. We have added chips to our game. Now I'm going to show you just the mechanics of how to deal out chips, deal out cards, move them on and off the table. We're going to recall all the cards. I deleted a couple cards that I played with, so I'm going to recall all the cards and shuffle after recalling. What this does is it pulls all the cards out of players' hands, out of the discard pile, and off the table. And if we check this box, it shuffles them all while it does that. So recall them all. Other options, you can just shuffle the deck anytime you like, and then we can deal. You can deal simply by clicking a card and dragging it either onto the table or into a player's hand. Now I have one card. But if you hit the deal button, you can actually deal a set number of cards to some players in the game or all players in the game. It's really helpful to be able to say, okay, let's deal 2 cards to all the players. Boom, deal. I can also deal chips. So at the beginning of the game, you figure out how much money you want to play with. You go to your chips and say, and again, the game is going to keep referring to them as cards because we set this up as a deck of cards. I'm going to deal 10 blue chips to everybody. They show up in the same place as my cards. And then I'm going to deal 10 red chips to everybody. Dealing onto the table, like you would if you were dealing a game of poker, is as simple as clicking and dragging. If you hold the shift key while you drop it, they will flip over face up. So if this were real poker, we would burn one in turn 3. You can right click the cards for a couple options. Take card takes the card off of the table and puts it into your hand. Flip card does just what it sounds like. You're going to flip it over from either face up to face down or vice versa. Betting is as simple as just going to your hand, taking your chips, and putting them out onto the table anywhere. We find it useful to put them in your actual square. Now you'll notice my chips are enormous. I can edit that by going over to my deck, taking my 50s card size. It's a little small, maybe like 50 by 50. But anyway, you can tweak the size of the chips to make them fit your table and make them relative to your cards. That's better. If you delete chips, they are gone for good, so don't do that. You want to right click and say take, and they go back into your hand. As the dealer, you can select cards and delete them. Cards that I select and hit the delete key go into the discard pile. They don't go back into the deck as long as discard pile is turned on. Remember to recall cards, and it will pull them out of everywhere they exist, including the now empty discard pile. The board can get kind of messy with a lot of chips and a lot of cards on the table. The best way to end a hand once you've determined who the winner is to have the game master recall all the cards and then have the winner of the game draw a box with the cursor across all the chips, selecting all the chips at once, right click and choose take, and they will all go into your bank at once. You also have options as players to turn on things like video chat and audio chat. So you can say I want to broadcast and receive video and voice. You can say I want to receive video and voice from other people, and then you can use the reconnect button. You can also mute your mic, mute your camera, refresh your video connection, which refreshes all your players. And once you have other players, you can actually control their volume levels individually. So I hope that this has been a useful tutorial on how to set up and build your own poker game on Roll20. And if you have any questions, just hit me up. Thanks.